Hello. Hey, everyone. And thank you for joining us for today's Digital Making at Home live stream. I'm Christina, and I'm coming to you live from Nebraska. And I am so excited to welcome back Mr. C. Hi, Mr. C.
Hey guys, it's Mr. C. I'm back. I've had a month off. I'm here. I'm in Cambridge again. You can see it's a slightly different room now because there's a baby in my house, and so I had to have a whole big shuffle now. So I've changed rooms, so it looks a little bit different. But I'm here now. It's good.
Oh my gosh!
And how are you? How's it been?
Yeah. How is that shift? How having a baby in the house?
There's a lot less sleeping going on in the house, I guess. It's like you're up at all hours, right? This little person just doesn't understand the concept of time, right? Like they have no idea what's convenient for you. And so when they get hungry, they tell you, and then you have to respond. So yeah, no, it's good.
Oh, well, hopefully we can meet the baby maybe on a future stream. Well, welcome and thank you so much to those of you who are here and those of you that are new. Mr. C and I are from the Raspberry Pi Foundation, and we are happy to have you here with us today. Please say hi in the chat and let us know where in the world you are joining us from. We are broadcasting live to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch right now, and we'll be able to see your comments. And if you're watching on raspberrypi.org, you can click the title of this video and head over to YouTube to join the chat. Now, for those of you who are new, like I said, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so glad you're here. Digital Making at Home is all about getting young people just like you coding and creating with technology. Every week, we chat with cool people, code together, and see amazing digital making projects from kids just like you. So I'm really excited because this week's theme, we are talking about making and risk taking. So I'm curious, Mark, any thoughts on a recent risk that you've taken that's really just really made a big difference in your life?
Well, yeah, I guess having the baby, right? Bring a whole new person into the world. That's just a totally massive unknown thing. This blank slate that's you're completely responsible for, right? That's pretty big. I'm not exactly the most responsible person in the world, but this has been a big shift in mindset for me, if you know what I mean. And it's been a big thing. That's the big change, I guess, is that the shift in perspective is there now. That I've taken this big risk, and it's okay, now my reality is very, very different to what it was before. I mean, have you taken any big life-changing risks?
Oh man, I'm considering getting a dog. I don't have kids yet, so I'm thinking about getting a dog. And when I think of just a big risk, though, I think a big risk for me was taking this job, and that it's about to be 3 years for me in February. But yeah, I remember seeing this and being oh, I don't know. My brother and my dad are the coders. I'm going to apply for this role. And it's absolutely changed my life. And but definitely I think that, and then even more recently, I moved to Nebraska. That was not on the 2020 plan. And things are going well. I think risks are scary. They're definitely really scary. And there's always the question of, should I have done it? Should I not have done it? What's that looking like?
I don't know about that. No, there's another thing. Once you've done it, you made this decision, you got to be yep, that was my choice. I'm following through on it. This is the way it is now. I think, and that's the big thing about risk for me personally, is that it's it's character building in the sense that you're stepping into a big unknown. It is by its very nature out of your comfort zone, right? And so every time you're out of your comfort zone, that's when you're learning the most.
Yes.
And that's, it forces you to be on your toes. And I think that's they're my favorite times, big risk taking myself.
Yeah. And those of you joining us, let us know a risk that you've taken that's really impacted you. I think what I love about our community is we do have a lot of a big community of risk takers from projects you've decided to create or even shared. Sometimes just sharing a project with the public is a huge risk. And I'm seeing folks. Hi, I'm seeing Yolanda on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Yolanda, how's it going?
Yeah. Hey, Yolanda.
She says get a dog. Yolanda says get a dog.
All right. Well, my dog enjoyed the live stream. I think, sharing that, even just saying it out loud, right? Just that's a risk in itself. It's making it real. It's real. Romilly from England on Facebook. Thank you so much. Kathy in Colorado, USA. Thank you on Facebook. Thanks so much for joining. Go Ball saying hi. And Miriam, welcome back, Miriam. So great to see you again. We're so glad you're here. Well, thanks. So Miriam's saying get a cat.
Oh, no, I'm a big dog person. I'm gonna put myself out there. I'm a dog person, I have to say.
I know. Oh, yes. Oh, I'm seeing some risks coming in. So we'll definitely, I'm seeing Yolanda saying that she left the classroom after 21 years and went to work at a university. Whew, that's a big risk. That's a big change. But I know you, Yolanda, and I know you've made such a huge impact in the work that you're doing now. So I'm so glad that you took that risk. Well, we are going to bring another risk taker on to the stream with us today. Who's joining us today, Mark?
Today we've got Amy Mather. So she's known as MiniGirlGeek, and she's done some cool stuff. I've met Amy a couple of times. I met her at PyCon once. We'll have a chat about that. She's like friends with a mutual friend of mine, Ben. We both know Ben pretty well. He's a bit of a loose cannon. We might get Ben on the show one time, I think, and he can have a chat about some of the crazy stuff he's done. But yeah, so we'll get Amy in. Like she's here. She's a design engineering student at Imperial, which is like pretty prestigious thing to be. And design engineering is like super interesting to me. Like I love the practical applications of design engineering. So we'll get her on and she can chat to us all about that and the project that she's been doing and stuff like that. So she's in the green room. Amy, do you want to jump on? Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. I love the lipstick. That's like awesome. Such a cool color. What's the name of that color?
Oh my gosh, I love that you have it right there. So much respect.
It's called 13. Lucky
Nice.
yeah, no, I just I didn't think I liked makeup, but then I discovered blue makeup. So here we are.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's very kawaii. It's a really nice color for you with the hair and everything. It's a great look. I'm liking it. It's great.
90% of my wardrobe is also blue. Like that is my personality now.
I love it. I love it. Embrace it. Embrace your wardrobe. I think, I'm a big fan. I actually wore some lipstick this morning. I was like, I need something. And so I really appreciate you coming in with some lip color too. Thanks.
Yeah, I really enjoy wearing it. It feels good.
Cool. So, I mean, it's great to have you on. Thanks for being here. Like, I mean, can you like introduce yourself to the people who are watching and sort of explain what it is you do, I guess, which is like a broad thing to ask, but.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Amy and I'm a maker. I've been involved in the Raspberry Pi since like the very beginning. I was part of the community since it first came out. And kind of it's really helped me along my journey to discovering what I want to do. Initially, I thought that I was going to go into computer science, but places like Fab Lab in Manchester, which are like these big open spaces where there's laser cutters and 3D printers that are free for public to use, I came in and discovered that like I really like being hands-on as well. So that's why I was really excited to find out about the fact that design engineering as a degree took place, because I wanted to invent things, get hands-on and make things, like learn about the technicalities, but also not just leave it in the theoretical realm, like really get to grips with the practical applications of the content. So yeah, so I've been studying design engineering for 3 years now, and the variety of projects we work on is extreme. So from things to do with period poverty and sustainability, homelessness, and then through to like just weird and bizarre projects like my Dragon Box, which I'll talk a little bit about later.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's the thing about design engineering for me. Like, it's MacGyvering, right? It's like, here's a problem. Now think about all the aspects of that problem and then like solve it to the best of your ability. Like, I love those sorts of like knotty things that you can just start pulling apart. Like,
Yeah.
is that what got you into it through your making? Do you think the idea that it's like, here's a problem, go solve that thing? Like, is that what you do?
I think I've always like cared about people, and like there's a really human side to design engineering. Like, you kind of think about, well, there's this thing called like the 6 different hats, and like there's the financial hat and like the environmental hat, and just like thinking about problems from all different perspectives. So kind of, I've always really enjoyed making things from like a personal perspective, but I've also wanted to be making things that make a difference. And so in order to do that, you need to understand all the different factors which affect something that you're designing. So you need to understand who it's going to impact and how it's going to impact the environment and how people are going to interact and use with it. And is this going to influence people's behavior for the better or for the worse? And there's kind of all these moral and social discussions around it as well. So it's not just about learning about the theory, it's kind of learning about how's this going to fit into the real world, and can I have a positive impact?
And And so part of what you do with design engineering then is actually going out and talking to the people that you're trying to solve the problem for, right? Like you do like user interviews and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you're thrown into the deep end from day one. We're taught about kind of all stages of the project. So we start off with learning about user research and user interviews. So learning how to talk to people and gather things called insights, which are like facts and ideas that can help with the direction of your project. So when you're working on a project, you kind of start with like an initial sort of vague brief. And by going out and talking to people and finding out like what the real issues are, you kind of diverge out into loads of different ideas, and then you assess like all of those different ideas, think about like what are the really key points, the key interesting ideas, and then you like hone it in to like a more defined brief, and then from that you come up with loads of different ideas, and so there's this whole process which involves people from the very beginning, so from talking to people at the beginning to then pitching your ideas to them, and then at the end, like we're taught communication skills. So how would you pitch to investors to get this off the ground? How would you pitch this to a team of engineers, or how would you pitch this to the customer? So creating videos and graphics to kind of market your ideas, as well as learning how to program the prototypes, how to build prototypes in the workshop, all the different kinds of prototypes that you can do. So like a prototype is to give you a better idea of how the final thing's going to work. So there's a whole scale and variety of different types of prototypes that you can work on. It might just be a simple piece of paper, a sketchy, really rough thing, took you 10 minutes to do, that helps you to prove the concept. And then from that, you might take it to a breadboard and create something that's called a works-like prototype. So a works-like prototype might not look like the final thing. It might not be very, very polished, but it proves that the technical capability is there. Whereas a looks-like prototype is more kind of you're testing the look and the feel of the product. Is it going to be, well, not necessarily the product or the service, if it feels right, if it's going to fit in people's hands. So there's kind of a whole variety of different activities that we do to kind of get an idea to something fruitful. So I can see up here, here's like an initial sketch that I had for an idea called your environmental fingerprint. So in my industrial design module this year, I was thinking about like the big question of like, how do we help people to be helpful? Like we're thinking about in terms of climate change, like there's loads of people who want to have an impact, but it's difficult to know what's actually going to make a difference. And there's kind of this key difference between feeling like you've had an impact and actually being impactful. So trying to come up with and devise a way of helping people feel more connected to the problem, and really knowing more discreetly or more with more confidence that what they're doing is going to have a good impact. So that was the initial sketch for something that I was developing there.
It's really neat to see that sketch. I taught middle school science. And so I had a project where students engaged in design thinking and designed, I think at the time they were thinking about how can you design an object that'll heat something up really fast or cool something down really fast using concepts that we had learned. And just seeing that sketch reminded me of it's so valuable for a young person to see that like people sketch things, they draw things out. It's not always going to be finished. And I always emphasize to them, like their sketches, their ideas are so important. Their unique perspectives are so important. And I'm curious for you, what do you feel like you bring to the design engineering field? Like what's your unique lens or experience that you are bringing into this space?
So design engineering is a very diverse course. Like we deliberately only have a requirement of mathematics because you need that for engineering, but nothing else is required. So that's very unusual for Imperial, which is usually like you need maths, further maths, and physics, which I did all of those, but it means that you're working with people. Some people have done art foundations, some people are very musical, and it's kind of a really creative and diverse background. I think that part of my perspective can come from, I have Tourette's, so I have a kind of disabled perspective on certain things, and that can be really interesting. I try to include a lot of accessibility issues in the work that I'm doing, so bringing an accessibility perspective to the table, and just kind of like I'm also quite motivated by sustainability, particularly environmental sustainability. So how can we tackle climate change? And so that enthusiasm is something that I really bring to the table in that respect. But a lot of my peers are enthusiastic, and it's just great working with such a diverse cohort.
Oh, I love hearing that there's like the diversity in the piece. I think you've mentioned like just enthusiasm can be a perspective, right? Like that's such a powerful thing to have that excitement. And you mentioned Tourette's. How does that manifest and how do you manage it?
So I've had Tourette's since February 2017. For the first year, I just thought I had the hiccups. I had the hiccups for a whole entire year, and everybody was very confused as to what was going on. But generally, so tics are involuntary movements. So you might have a couple of tics yourself. You might tap your leg, or you might rub your nose like this, or you might sniff a lot. But it kind of moves into more of a tic disorder when there's a lot of them. So I've had a variety of tics over the years. I've learned how to make a new noise, which is which happens loudly and involuntarily a lot. For quite a small person, I can make a large volume of noise, and it likes to manifest when I'm in quiet places. So I haven't been to the library in a while. To make certain encounters awkward. But now I get my own room for exams, so no one around you like stressing you out.
Silver lining, right? That's nice. I like that.
New noises. Could learn how to make cat noises and motorbike noises. They just kind of come out of my mouth, so I can make a quite good vocal artist, maybe for cartoons. But kind of the way that I manage it is sometimes with medication. So sometimes I have tic attacks, which is where like doing so many different tics at the same time, like my arms are doing things, my head's doing things, my torso is doing things, that it makes it difficult to do anything else. So there's some medication that can help calm that down. But in general, I've just found that like just letting them do their thing is the most helpful thing. So stress can make it worse. So if I'm stressed about like what other people are thinking and really conscious of everyone around me, that's just going to make it worse. So instead of trying to suppress it, I just let it do what it wants to do, and that unless it's harming me or someone around me. And so in that case, like just helping myself to be more comfortable with the tics and ensuring that everyone else around me has an understanding of what it is and they're comfortable and accepting, that's the best environment to be in, because then they can just do their thing and then they don't get angry at you. I talk about them as if they're another person, because it feels like we've got like, I don't know, there's a Pixar scene where like there's a big dashboard and the aliens are controlling this flying UFO, and they get into an argument and they're just smushing all the controls of the control panel and it just goes out of control. So I feel like those aliens are having an argument inside my head and my arms are just like, whoa. So that's kind of what it feels like. And so just keeping those aliens happy, I guess, is
I appreciate that imagery though, and I imagine like there are young people out there who may also be experiencing a disability. And so hearing you talk about your Tourette's and how you navigate, but also it sounds like how you also embrace it, like like your positivity as you discuss it, like, and talk about it is really powerful. And so if you're a young person out there, like knowing like having a disability, like can bring a unique perspective to any work that you do. And that can be so powerful. So thank you for sharing about that, Amy.
No worries. I'm happy if anyone who's got Tourette's and has got questions about digital making and how it might impact them. I'm happy to talk about that. Another thing I just say is like, don't be afraid to ask for the accommodations that you need. So for a long time, like I was scared to be like, I need extra help. But actually like that's kind of had the biggest positive influence in my life in the past few years, is just being like, hey, like, this is actually really exhausting, like moving all the time when I can't do anything about it. And maybe I should bring that up and maybe like ask for some more help with that. And so like, don't be afraid to ask for help and kind of just be honest about like what's going on. It's worked out for the best in my case.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. I'm like processing that. And I think it's a good reminder for anyone, right? Especially in the current climate that we're in. I mean, the three of us are in three different places, like, and everyone's got different procedures going on and navigating the pandemic. So just a reminder, like, ask for help, ask your team for help, ask your family for help, ask your friends for help. That's so super important. You mentioned making, let's talk about that. What was the first project you ever, you can remember working on?
Well, so the first project I ever remember was a diorama, like a shoebox diorama that we might have made like in year 1 or something, which they taught us about the very basic circuit of lighting up an LED and like, I don't know, it was just a shoebox and I can't even remember what the scene was. But my first like digital making project was Mount Arduino. So in year 8, which is when you're about 12, for American audiences, we were asked to create a paper mache model of a volcano, and I'd recently learnt about the Arduino, and I decided I was going to put mine in. So instead of just doing the easy thing of sticking some labels on it, I stuck an LCD screen in there, stuck some LEDs in there, and it kind of cycled through, and like a corresponding LED would like light up on various parts of the volcano. And then I also plugged in a little buzzer, and so it had an eruption mode, so it was like, oh no, and it was like meh, 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 when it was erupting. So it was a low-key project with a screen and some LEDs, but first experience like programming something that's going to be working in the real world. And I think it's always really fun to like programming is great on the screen, but when you actually see something come to fruition in the real world, like it's just got another dimension to it.
Yeah, the power of an LED,
Yeah.
right? Like that could be so amazing. We actually have a question from Miriam on YouTube. She's wondering, like, how do design and art come together? Like, do you have to like art to engage with design? Do you like art, Amy?
I do like art. I have some paintings that I've done here. So, one second. So this is actually the head of school of the design and engineering department. I painted him for a competition. And then, in terms of digital making, there is this piece of acrylic which goes on top, and you can see that is like laser engraved. So when you put LEDs around the side, it like glows. So there's an alpaca, because he has an alpaca company. This is part of the design engineering building. He's working on electric planes, so there's a plane there. And then this is the 6 hats that I was talking about. He really likes that design methodology. So that like lines up on top of the portrait. And then maybe if I use my phone torch, it'll light up. Wah! Yeah, so you can see like the lines start to glow.
Ooh, oh wow.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so you can like art, and I do like art. I didn't take art GCSE or art A-level because I don't like to be stressed about my art. Like, I'm a perfectionist. And so I like to take my time. Like sometimes a picture will take years for me to complete. Other times it'll take hours, depending on it. I'm in the flow. So I never did it. I never studied it properly. And like creativity, but creativity can manifest in many different ways. So you don't have to like art to be a good designer. Like it helps with like certainly creative thinking from a visual perspective, but there's so many other elements to design, like the environmental side, the very human side. So I think just having like a passion for creating something that's going to work and going to do good is the main thing. But I like art. It's fun. It's good to relax and unwind.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing those. It was super neat to see. And I've been asking you a bunch of questions. I know Mr. C has some more questions for you.
No, I was just going to ask about the Dragon Box, because I know that's a project that you've been working on recently, and I saw the talk that you did about it, which was hilarious, if possibly not safe for young people to have a look at. But it's brilliant. So for any adults watching, it's definitely worth having a look at. But could you like explain the concept behind the Dragon Box, because it's amazing. It's a very cool idea.
Yeah. So for Gizmo, which is a project in year 2, like I kind of put the whole like environmental, social issues thing aside and was like, I just want to get really dug in on a project that like pushes me to my limits, and really kind of explore something that's fun and quirky. So before I've made a dinosaur hoodie, which is like it's a hoodie which has got 3D printed spines down the back, and then rainbow LEDs like light it up, and it's all glowy. So like continuing on for that theme, I just quite like mythical creatures. Well, I know dinosaurs aren't mythical, but there we go. So the dragon box was supposed to be. This is a very. I tried to make it sound like an engineering project by calling it an electromechanical extraction of a dragon into a triagonal trapezohedroid form. But
that is an excellent buzzwording.
Yeah,
like
perfect.
A box that has the personality of a dragon. So it's got elements of scales, and it's got elements of like being touched and elements of fire, and kind of abstracting that into the form of a box. So with this project, like I really kind of thought back to like, what do I like in a project? Like, who do I look up to? Who do I admire? And what elements of those projects really excite me? And then kind of took it to the drawing board and did a whole load of sketches. Some of them are really neat and really pretty, and others of them are just like getting the idea down on the paper, trying to work something out. So there's loads of pictures of me trying to figure out the wiring and stuff. And so, yeah, I came up with this concept of a box which has got loads of spheres on the top, which you kind of stroke. And the idea was that initially the scales would be hidden from you in a wall. So I've got the wall here, which is the... Yeah. Okay. Nope, abandon that. There's too many wires. So
I thought myself, I was looking like this to see if I could look into your camera.
So this is a 3D printed prototype of the scales. So the kind of story of the box would be that, like, initially, the scales are hidden from you. But if you treated the box nicely, you stroked it gently, or maybe there was like a secret stroke that you could do, then it would interact with you. And these have got, if I show you this one, it's got LEDs inside, so that it will glow and like reveal these glowing scales to you. And then if you were really rough with it and really violent with it, then the top panel would like glow in terms of fire. I think we've got a video of that. Okay, so yeah, this is the prototype of the scale. So the way that I designed this was it had to be, I wanted it to not have a gap in the wall because I wanted it to be like as seamless as possible. So what I did was I took a dragon scale shape and I rotated it on its axis to create like the equivalent of a sphere, but for a dragon scale. And then I chopped off the sides. So this means that this edge has got a constant radius. So that's how you get it to spin inside the wall kind of seamlessly. It's really fun to play with. Yeah, but this is it all glowing. So I was initially like, okay, so if it's going to be spinning, I don't want it to have to spin and then unspin the other way. So how can I get it to have like continuous rotation but still get an electrical connection in there? Turns out you can just buy headphone jacks. So you know, like what you plug your earphones, well, what you used to plug your earphones into your phone with. Just use that. You can buy them. And so if we take a closer look, I just desoldered them and put them into my project, attached the wires that I wanted. And so now there's a little NeoPixel in there. It's got data in, data out, power, and yeah, power and ground. And so that means that there's no wires having any stress on them because it plugs in to, so this is the wall. And if I take the wall apart, I take it apart, then you see there's headphone jacks here, which are like all embedded in the wall. So I use a CNC router, which is like a drill that a computer controls. And so there's headphone jacks in here, and the scales, they just plug in. Ooh. So now they can rotate within the wall and maintain this electrical connection, which is all wired up on the inside of the box. So it's kind of like balancing. Yeah, this whole project was like a balance of the visual aesthetic that I was going for, which is kind of steampunk, so like wood, metal, and glowing LEDs, with all the wiring and the complications that come with that. So the proudest thing that I came across with this project is the mechanism. So I hadn't done much mechanism design before, but if we go to the prototypes of like cardboard mechanisms, I just spent a weekend and learned about mechanisms. So that involved like watching video after video, YouTube videos, and looking through a book of like 101 different mechanisms, and just thinking about, right, I've got 4 scales in my wall, and I don't want to buy 4 motors because they're expensive and I'm working on a budget. So what I did instead was, but actually I wanted to have scales on 2 walls. So there's 8 scales and they're 90 degrees apart from each other. So how do I turn the circular motion of a motor into the square motion of the circumference of a box? So if I have got the right thing here.
I love so much that you have all of this around you. Like it's clearly like it's a maker space. It's a space of creativity and like fun energy.
I just feel when I've invested so much time and like thought and energy into a project, like I just can't bear to throw away the prototypes. I mean, I've thrown away some of my prototypes now because my bedroom is getting a bit unlivable. But this is my baby. I can't I can't get rid of it. So the way that this mechanism works is that the motor, which is here, kind of plugs in on top of this, and as it rotates, you can see that there's kind of like this circular gear. So that moves this plate around, which is gripping an arm, which moves around with it. And what that does is that arm is like a slider. So it's just a flat piece which can slide up and down. And I think I might have, oh, here it is. 1 second. Here is the arm. Nice. So it's a little bit difficult to see because it's clear acrylic. But basically it's got, when this moves rotationally, like it gets dragged around, but it has the freedom to slide up and down. So as it slides up and down, it can basically drag this little device around the square. And so, yeah, it's a mechanism that converts circular motion into square motion. And I'm really proud of it because it took
that's very clever.
a lot of thinking. And this is just it working. So it engages with the gear on the wall, and it flips the dragon scales 90 degrees. So you can turn as many scales as you want around that wall with just 1 motor.
Brilliant.
Wow. The whole process of that, I think first you talking about like identifying what do I like? What kind of projects do I like? And then bringing in your love of like mythical creatures and creating a box that replicates a dragon, but then like actually looking at the very specific, like the mechanisms that you needed to know to fulfill that dream. I think it's so neat to see. It's really incredible. Yeah.
And just like trying to figure out how to manufacture it as well. I spent a week in the workshop manufacturing this wall and these scales took a week to make. I was making batch production of these dragon scales. So it was fun. But it's still not finished. So that's just something that I wanted to bring up is like don't be afraid of like not having finished something. Like for ages when I was trying to so I was applying for placements, which is like a short-term work experience, 6 months or so as part of my degree. And initially I was scared to talk to people about this project because I was like, all they're going to see is that like I didn't finish it. And I was really ashamed of that. But then I realized like there is so many elements of this work that I'm really proud of, and like life got in the way and it was important. There were things that I needed to deal with, and like at the end of the day, like I still did an awesome job. Like it's not finished, but like I'm finished, kind of like I'm finished being guilty about it. And I'm gonna celebrate it because like there's lots of cool elements to the project, and maybe one day when there's not a pandemic, so I can actually go and hang out in the hat space as much as I want, like it will get done. But yeah.
That's
cool.
I
love that.
Yeah, really cool. And I think the idea that you can like have a big project and learn something from it, and maybe that's what the project was about, right? Like doesn't have to be a finished, like, you know, marketable object, but the fact that you took all these skills away and you thought about a bunch of processes, came up with like that conversion from round to square motion, that's amazing. That's such a cool idea. Like, Yeah, brilliant, really cool concept. I mean, is there anything you're working on now? Are there any projects you got on the go at the minute?
There's not. I got a couple of painting projects, but like I'm very tired at the moment.
Yeah.
Like 2020's been a tough year for everybody. I've just finished working full time for 6 months, and with Tourette's and everything, like I just get tired out quite easily. And so like one thing that I just wanted to say is like I still identify as a maker, like even when I'm not making things, like often like online, I've certainly felt this pressure that I need to be working on something all of the time and I'm a fraud or something if I'm not. But like right now I'm giving myself a break because I need a break. So like no, I'm not, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Thank you for saying that, Amy. I think I know I need it. You've said so many really great gems. I've actually been writing them down. I'm going to journal about them later. Just things that like don't feel guilty for not finishing a project or taking a break. Like I think right now, especially folks, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, folks were talking about, well, like so-and-so did this, like when this happened, or like, and just like taking that time to just take care of yourself and take a break so you can make it in the future. That's so important. You mentioned a placement. I think you did a placement at the BBC, right? Can you tell us what you were doing there and what you enjoyed the most about it?
Yeah, so I was a junior research and development engineer, and I was excited to learn that they had a sustainability and environmental sustainability team. So I was working with those lovely people, and I was working on some code to create a platform to help employees to identify their carbon footprint usage. So I was prototyping that for them. And kind of the skills involved there were like thinking about the user interface design, who's going to be interacting with this, like what behaviors do we want to be encouraging, and using Python and Django and JavaScript, learning about React, which is like a web framework for user interfaces, and plugging all of this together to create like a prototype for this tool for the department. So that's what I was doing on placement.
Oh, wow. Wow. I'm seeing folks that are reacting to what you were also saying earlier, just saying that like a very mature concept of life, like you are a maker and you can go back to it at any time. And it sounds like you being honest with that got you this placement at BBC and you learned from that. I do want to be mindful of time and mindful of your time. I'm so grateful that you've joined us. Wrapping up, what advice? Like, I mean, you've given actually a lot of advice, but it's especially for a young person who wants to go into making. Any last things you want to share for someone who wants to go into making or design engineering?
I think just have fun. Like, don't try and force yourself into a mold that's not going to fit you. Just have fun. That's how I got into making. Like, I spent Saturdays in the hack space because it was fun. And I spent Saturdays just working on like what I wanted to be doing. I'd tinker in the evenings and kind of just like the passion was really like what drove me. So like code something because you find it interesting or because you're going to have fun. And I think that will take you really far. And don't be afraid to talk about that. Like if you've got a uni interview or if you've got like a work interview, like show your passion. Like people really respond to that. Just if you show them how excited you are about this thing that you've made, then they'll be excited too. And they'll be excited for you. So just have fun. Take it easy.
Yes. Preach. Thank you, Amy. Yeah. Well, thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing. It really meant a lot to have you on here. And we're definitely seeing folks who are just super appreciative of like what the wisdom that you've shared. So hopefully we can connect again. And until then, enjoy your break, enjoy resting, and thank you for sharing with us. It's so good to see you.
Thanks. It's been lovely being here. See you later. Bye.
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 Oh,
So
wow.
cool.
I'm like,
Yeah, Amy's
I'm
great.
gonna need to sit down after that one.
So
like that was
that
really
circular
cool.
square motion converter, that blew my mind. That was such a clever like interpretation of how to do that. That was very cool. I really like that.
Yeah. Like just her talking about, I think the big thing that resonated with me was make things that you're excited about. Like and I think that's so important. And when I talk with students or even when I talk with other folks about like making like a project, they're like, well, I'm seeing this or I'm doing this. And it's like, well, take a moment to actually step back and ask yourself, what are you excited about? Like we now have a dragon box because Amy took that time to like just identify what excited her. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah. And I think having that passion, right, coming from a place of passion in your projects means that it will fuel you to work on them like at your best level. Do you know what I mean? And I think that, like, and Amy said as well, the risk of that though is that like you can burn yourself out, and being aware of that is the other side of that coin, right? It's important to know that you throw yourself at your passions and do the best you can, but at the same time knowing when you have to stop and recharge and continue doing your best work. I think that's
that's very mature, and I needed to be reminded of that. So thank you, Amy. Shout out to Amy.
Yeah.
Wow. And thank you also, so all of you who joined, Miriam, Hydro Malice on Twitch, Go Ball on Facebook, Daryl, Lou, lots of opinions about the pet. I'll keep you all updated on whether or not I get a dog. And also there's a lot of appreciation. Yeah, for Quintace on, what is that, Twitter. So thank you all so much for joining us. It was great to see so many of you getting involved. Now, in the theme of making and risk-taking, I bet some of you have projects that you're making, especially right now for the Halloween season. And like we said, take a risk, share. They don't have to be done. And we actually have an opportunity to share those projects. Our friends at Coder Dojo are hosting a Boo Challenge. And this is a great way to share your ideas. There are even prizes for those of you who are competitive like me. So any young person can share their Halloween themed digital project, and you can go to rpf.io/boo for more information. So definitely check that out. Now, this is all we had time for this week. I'm full. Like, I think that talk with Amy was really, really powerful for me. And it was a really good reminder of taking a step back. And so we would love to hear from you all. You can always get in touch with us. You can send us an email at DMAH, so digital making at home, at raspberrypi.org. We'd love to hear from you if you have projects you're working on, especially if you're a young digital maker. If you want to come and share on the stream, we'd love to connect with you. Absolutely. Now, we have another live stream next week, same time, same place. Me and Mr. C, we're going to be here hanging out, talking to some cool folks. So thank you all for being here for the Raspberry Pi Foundation's Digital Making at Home stream. And I hope we'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe and healthy.
Catch you later, everybody.
See you later, Mr. C.
See you later, Christina. It's great to be back.